This is a brief introduction to array formulas. So an array formula is a formula that can perform multiple calculations on one or more elements of a so-called array. Talk about that in a minute. It can return multiple cells as well instead of just one cell. The multiple cells that we're calling an array are in a rectangular shape, so it can be either all in one row, all in one column, or it could be a square or rectangular block of cells. So anything like that. The shape is like the shape of the kind of arrays we've worked with in VBA. It's not the same thing, but a similar concept, at least in terms of the kind of grouping of values that we're talking about. Now we're going to start by illustrating with a formula that actually returns multiple values. And we'll do this by creating an array formula that transposes an array. Now interestingly, there's a copy option that does the same thing, but it creates a copy that's not linked to the original. So changing the original doesn't change the copy, whereas if we use the transpose formula, it does. This example is from the book Excel the Missing Manual by Matthew McDonald, which is a good book. So over here I've set things up and I've got my data, and what I'm going to do is create my formula. So I'm going to write equals transpose, and I'll just select the guys I want to transpose. Okay. Close paren. And now, instead of pushing return like I would with a normal formula, I'm on Windows here, so I'm going to do Control Shift Enter. I would do Command Return if I were on a Mac. Okay, and here you can see my transpose copy and my regular copy. Now, I use the word copy, but I shouldn't do that because let me show you why. Suppose I come back here and I just copy this. So I'm going to right click and copy, and then I'm going to come down here and paste with the transpose. Ooh, didn't like that. Let's try again here. Oh, because I left out the top one, which all the other formulas depend on. So okay, now copy, come down here, paste with the transpose option. Alright, now it looks like I have two copies here that are exactly the same, but they're not. And the reason is, this one is still linked to the original data, this one is not. And to show you that, suppose I come back here to my original data, and I change this, say, to a 12. Okay, because of the way I did this, each piece of data going down the columns copies the prior one. So they all changed underneath the one I changed. And here you can see in the one I created with the transpose formula, they're all changed to 12s, whereas the one I did with a copy, they're still 10s. So these are still linked in a live way, these are not. Now one thing you really have to watch out for when you create something like this is that if you try to change this, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. There may be a graceful way out, but I haven't found it. So what you have to be careful of is if you create something this way, don't try to go in and change one of these, because Excel will just complain, and my experience, I've ended up just having to erase the whole thing and start over. Okay, so that's our first example. That's on sheet 1 of our example workout. On sheet 2 I have some others, so let's go back to the presentation here. And you have the slides for this in the class materials. I'm going to just skip over these because I just did what I showed you on these slides. Oh, one thing to point out is the curly brackets. Going back to sheet 1, if we look at our formula here, you can see that there are curly brackets. I didn't type those. Excel put them on. When I do the special form of return, either Shift Control Enter on Windows or Command Return on the Mac, Excel puts those on for me, and it's a visible signal that this was created using an array formula. Okay, so there are some other functions that work similarly and create a whole result array from your input array. Frequency is one, trend is one. You can read about those. So for another example, I got this one off the Microsoft support site, and it's illustrating by doing something that you could also have done with the SUMIF and SUMIFs functions that we looked at in week 3 when we were looking at conditionals. So the other unusual or unfamiliar thing about this is that it uses a plus sign as a Boolean operator. Plus sign works the same as OR as a Boolean operator, so it's just another way of creating an OR. Okay, so let's look at our data here, going back to sheet 2. What we have is a company, and it's got 8 departments, and we're just giving them a type, so A, B, or C, A, B, C, A, or C. And then here's how many employees each department has. And what I want to know is how many employees are there in departments of type A or B. Well, there's many ways you could do this. But here's one using an array formula. And as soon as I select this, you can tell I used an array formula because you see the curly brackets surrounding it. So here's what the formula looks like. I write equals sum. So I want to add up sum all the elements in column B that have an A or a B in front of them in column A. So I'm going to say if the element from A2 to A9 equals A in quotes, character A, or if it equals B in quotes, or I should say one element string, B, then I'm going to take the corresponding element from column B and add it. Otherwise, I'm going to return a 0. So in other words, what the if returns is the corresponding element from B if its condition is true. Otherwise, it returns 0. So this is an array formula because it does each element in the array A2 to A9, gets its corresponding element out of B2 to B9. And I don't have to write a loop, it just knows it's an array element. And if you add them up, you get the answer 16, which is the right answer. Okay, that's one way. Now here's another way to do it. This one actually uses a tiny constant array inside the formula. So here we write equals sum, and then it's going to say if the element from A2 to A9 equals A, or if it equals B, then return the corresponding element from B2 to B9, otherwise 0. And so whenever there's an A or a B, we'll get the number. Where there's a C, we'll get a 0. It'll add them all up, and we got 16 again. Notice again that up here there are curly brackets. And by the way, this is on sheet 2 here. You have the actual sheet with the formulas if you want to mess around with them. So my bottom line on this, there are cases where it makes sense to use these kind of formulas, but I'm sorry, I don't think it's very intuitive at all that this formula works the way it does. And the documentation on this isn't all that great. So play around with these if you want, but my feeling is between using SUMIFs, COUNTIFs, and programming, you can probably produce something a little bit clearer than you can with an array formula, and less error prone as well. Well, if you like these though, there's more information that you can find. One good place is at the Excel Help site, which has a lot of good articles in it, not just on this, but on other things as well.